Winter is a season when we see a lot of beautiful varieties of flowers blooming around us, especially in Bangalore. But all plants don't do really well during the cooler months. A lot of flowering plants are really happy and in bloom, but many house plants and tropical plants feel the stress of the dipping temperatures and the cold weather. So today I'm sharing few changes that are happening in our garden during the winter season and how we can care for these plants during these cooler months. So as you can see, this is a tropical flowering vining plant, and during the winter season, just like many other plants, they shed their leaves and a lot of leaves turn yellow. And there are also a lot of branches that are completely dried up and they have no blooms on them. Though this plant still has a few blooms, there are a lot of dried up branches and all of these need to be cut back and pruned. But make sure that there is no heavy pruning during the winter season because you will not see any kind of new growth until the weather warms up. So what I'm going to do is remove all the yellow and the dried leaves and trim off those branches that are completely dried up. So the brown branches with no leaves at the edge, these are all from the fallen flowers, the spent flowers and the spent blooms. So with a pair of shears, I'm going to just trim back only the dried up parts of these branches. No heavy pruning during the season because there will be no new growth, and too much of hard pruning during the season can cause the plant to dry up completely. This year, in addition to the cold weather, we are also having occasional rains, and it has been raining continuously for the last 3 to 4 days. And this can cause another problem in a lot of plants, that is waterlogging. During the summertime, even if there is a little water at the base of the plant, they will evaporate due to the heat. But during the winter, since there is no evaporation, this can be a real problem. So make sure to check all containers and your plants to see if there is any waterlogging at the base of the plants and get rid of them immediately. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, a lot of flowering plants do well and are in full bloom during the winter season. But some tropical plants like hibiscus bloom during the summer season and also during the rainy season, but the cold winter temperatures are not really suited for these tropical plants. So you can see a lot of yellowing leaves and also sometimes some pest attack. So this pest attack occurs due to lack of sunlight and the cold weather and lot of moisture that stays on these plants. Since winters have cold nights and foggy mornings and very little direct sunlight during the day, this is one of the reason for a lot of pest attack, especially on tropical plants. Another thing to watch out for is dead decaying leaves, and they can sit at the base of the plant and they can rot, especially when we have the cold weather and rain together at the same time. So this can cause root rotting or fungal infections at the base of the plant, near the soil or at the root. Also remove any kind of dead decaying leaves from the branches of plants to prevent fungus attacks and also improve air circulation around the branches of these plants. Many plants like dracaenas and other house plants that prefer warmer weather can get stressed when the temperatures start to cool down. So it would be a good option to move them to a partially covered area or a spot where it doesn't receive the cold draft or the wind during the night time. This plant has been kept in an open area and it's not even in a partially covered area. So any kind of weather changes or temperature changes that happen during the day and night are completely affecting this plant, and this is why it's showing so much of stress. Check all your plants for these kind of spotting or yellowing of leaves, and look at the underside of leaves to see if there is any kind of pest infection on these plants. Now, these are the plants on our covered front porch, and most of these plants are doing well. There are a few plants that are showing some signs of stress, but it's not affecting the entire plant as it did with the Dracaena plant. So, this is a Philodendron and it has been in our front porch for a while. And there are a few leaves that are showing a sign of stress. But for the most part of it, this plant is doing well and is growing really well with lots of new growth. So as you can see in a lot of these pothos and other plants like philodendron and house plants, they all show a little bit of stress like yellowing of leaves and slightly brown tips on leaves. So when we see the yellowing of leaves and brown tips, we should check the soil to make sure that these plants are not being overwatered. So overwatering is a big issue that happens during winter time, and if we continue to water our plants just like we do during the summer, it can cause overwatering and root rot, and the plants can show a lot of stress. But these plants are overall doing well and are healthy, but with a little bit of stress, which is okay when only a few of the leaves are showing any kind of stress. But if the plant is overall healthy and looking good and doing well, we don't have to be worried. This is a variety of Chlorine, commonly known as chains of glory. So this plant is growing well and it is sending out new spikes for blooming. So this is a plant that usually blooms during the cooler months and it is doing well, and there are a lot of new flower buds that are coming up. But even in this plant you can see a little bit of pest attack. This is a mealybug attack and it's better to get rid of these small pests as and when we see them so that they don't infect the rest of the plant. Now this calathea plant is showing more signs of stress with browning tips and a few brown and decaying leaves. So I'm going to remove these brown leaves and get rid of all the decaying leaves so that they can continue to grow healthy. But calatheas are plants that do better in warm and humid conditions and are not great when they are grown during the winter time. So any kind of plants that you have growing in containers, make sure to keep the soil clean and remove any kind of decaying leaves from the base of the plant. So I'm going to remove all these decaying leaves that are falling off our jackfruit tree and champaka magnolia on a regular basis. So these that are being in the container will cause fungus gnats and soil infections. So these are usually collected every day and cleaned out and collected in another container so that we can compost these. Apart from the tips that I shared in this video, make sure not to fertilize any of your house plants during the winter time except the winter flowering plants. Only the winter flowering plants need an extra boost so that they can bloom well and look beautiful. But all other house plants and foliage plants don't require any kind of fertilizing. Excess fertilizing for these plants, especially during the winter season when most of these plants are in dormancy and don't produce any new growth, can cause these plants to die back, or they can have a lot of brown tips and yellowing leaves and shed all their foliage. So this is a view of the plants from our garden, how they are handling and dealing with the rains and the cold weather that we are having in Bangalore this year. Every plant has a different requirement, so make sure to check your plant and attend to it based on its requirement. Please do support and subscribe to our channel for more gardening related videos. Thanks for watching Fresh from my garden.